Welcome to the Holistic Wealth and Health Podcast. Your co-hosts, Jason Smith and Brian Bibbo, will inspire and teach you how to prosper in your mind, body, and spirit, not just your financial life. Joining forces with field experts, Jason and Brian are here to help you focus on what matters most in your life, living well.
Welcome, everyone, to the Holistic Wealth and Health Podcast. I'm Jason Smith, and I'm your host for this episode. And I am bringing forth a topic that is both relevant to your wealth and your health, because the topic today is how to protect your identity in the real and digital world. So I don't think anything is more important, right, than in protecting your identity for identity theft. And obviously, those people are trying to kind of steal a piece of your wealth, or as much as they can. And man, what kind of stress that can bring to you from a health standpoint. So I think we're kind of hitting on both of these in this topic in this episode. And I'm excited to announce that Carrie Kerskie, a certified identity fraud investigator, and she's a speaker and an author and a consultant on identity theft, privacy, and cybersecurity, is joining us today. So, Carrie, welcome and thanks for being with us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's a joy to be here.
All right. Well, this is going to be a great topic. Carrie, let's kind of start with your background, right? Over 20 years of experience here. Tell us a little bit about your story and how you got into this field and leading up to today.
Sure. So my company, Kerskie Group, we've been in Naples, Florida since 2001. We are a licensed private investigation agency, but about 2006, we got a call from a first identity theft victim. And back then, there weren't a lot of resources. And we told her, we're like, well, we've never handled one of these before, but we're happy to work through it and figure it out with you. And from there, it took on a life of its own. We started getting more referrals. We kept seeing patterns and habits of how people were becoming victims. So we started giving talks in our community. And it's kind of funny. I remember one of the nonprofits I reached out to offer to speak to their members. She says, that's not a problem in Naples, Florida. We don't have to worry about that. So I was like, okay, I'm on to something big here. And since then, all we've done is we help identity theft and fraud and cyber scam victims recover. So that's really the bulk of it.
Okay. And Carrie, let's kind of get into the meat of it right out of the gate. And tell me, first question that comes to mind for me is, what are the biggest mistakes that people make that make them susceptible to this? So what are some of the things that you're seeing that are like, man, don't do that, right? For our listeners to know that, what can they do to avoid this?
Yeah, so one of the biggest things we're seeing, and this shifted probably about, maybe 5-8 years ago, people have a mindset of, if I don't do anything online, if I don't activate my online financial accounts or whatever type of accounts, if I'm offline, then I'm better protected. And the opposite is true. And that's because all of the organizations, pretty much everyone you do business with nowadays, has an online account available. So if you're not setting it up and claiming it, you're leaving it available for somebody to do that on your behalf. So we see a lot of account takeovers. That's when they take over and get into your bank account, your investment account, mobile phone account, whatever it might be, is because the victim themselves never set up the account in the first place. So one of the big things is mark your territory. Yes, I have dogs, so you can tell that's where that came from. But yet you have to identify it and claim it as your own. So if somebody tries to come behind you, you'll get notified that somebody's trying to change. But if you never set it up, you're not going to get that notification. The other two things that we find is people are afraid to ask for help. The big thing is they think that it's a part of embarrassment. I don't want to admit when I don't know, because there are always people out there, the big slang term that we hear a lot, and especially in TV and media and such, is the phrase, okay, boomer. If somebody does something and it's involving technology and they don't do it well, that's led to this environment of or culture of fear. So people are afraid to ask for help. And we see it a lot with aging parents and adult children, where the aging parent, when they try to ask the adult child for help, the person's like, oh my gosh, I'll just do it for you. Or, I can't believe you don't know how to do that. Or the adult parent is buying a device for the aging parent, but not teaching them how to use it. So it's created this perfect storm where it's just made it a field day for criminals to be able to get in and infiltrate and do what they are doing.
So what are some best practices we can do overall to mitigate the risk of identity theft or fraud?
Sure. So one of the biggest things we tell people, now I'm down in Southwest Florida, huge Gulf community, so we have to make it easy in Gulf related terms. Yeah. So we tell people to stay on par. So part of the par, the P, is prevention. You block what you can. Awareness, keep aware of what threats are out there. You don't have to understand them inside and out, but just have a working knowledge, understand them. So when you're faced with it, you'll know how to properly respond. And then finally, the R is for recovery. Have a plan in place, because this stuff can happen to anyone at any time. As a matter of fact, anyone can go online right now, and you don't have to go to the dark web. You can go to the surface web or Google indexes. You can buy anyone's name, address, date of birth, and social for 25 cents. So it's not a matter of if you're going to be a victim, it's when you're going to be a victim. So make sure that you have a plan in place, who you're going to call, who's going to help you. But as far as the prevention side, you can't prevent all of this from happening. It's impossible to prevent all identity theft. You have the financial, which is the most common, but then you have utilities, you have government benefits. Now we're seeing money laundering identity theft. I mean, there's so many of them out there. So the biggest thing we tell people, protect yourself from new credit account fraud. It's one type you can prevent, and that's by getting a credit freeze. You are entitled by federal law to activate a free credit freeze on your credit reports. I recommend doing it online, because when you go to each of the credit bureau's websites, you can activate a free account where you can manage your freeze. Turn it on, turn it off if you need to let somebody see your credit. And then also you can get your free credit report. And what a freeze does, again, by law, the bureaus are not allowed to release your credit report for any new credit applications. So if somebody tries to apply for an account using your identity, the creditor is not going to get the report. They can't make a financial decision. The account won't be opened. So it's your best defense. Now, just make sure you're doing a credit freeze, not a credit lock. That is a contractual agreement with the credit bureaus, and we have seen new accounts be opened for people who have a lock. There are more than 50 consumer reporting agencies out there, so we recommend freezing with 5 of the big credit bureaus. So you have Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion, the one that everybody knows. And Novus is the 4th one. And then you also have NCTUE, that's National Consumer Telecom Utilities Exchange. That one we see with a lot of the utilities identity theft and mobile phone. But we've seen in the past 2 months a significant increase in utilities identity theft.
So credit freeze on all 5 of those. And you said you go online to do that? Each of the one of those?
Yep, you can go to each one of them through their website. So Experian, you just go to Experian.com and you just set up the free online account. For Equifax, it'd be my.equifax.com. And then for TransUnion, they offer 3 different accounts when you go to the transunion.com. There's the credit monitoring, there's the service center, and then there's, I believe it's True Identity, if I'm remembering that correctly. The one you want is the service center. That's the free account for managing the credit freeze. You'll have to do some ID verifying questions. You'll have to put in your sensitive information, because that's the only way they're going to verify that you are you. But once you have the account set up, make sure you keep that username and password, because if you ever need to lift the freeze, log back in and just easily do it. It takes like literally 5-10 minutes.
Okay, excellent. And Carrie, for me, it just seems like perception-wise, there's even more identity theft and more of this fraud happening. I don't know if it's year by year or 5 now compared to 5 years ago, but it seems like there's just been an increase. It seems to me, at least. I don't know. What are your thoughts on there? Is it easier now? Is there an actual increase in this? Is it pretty much the same as it's been? Talk to that a little bit.
Yeah, so we've been, like I said, working with victims for about 15 years or more. And what we have noticed is prior to 2020, it was a pretty regular stream. You'd have your typical identity theft, then you'd have fraud type things, then you have cyber. After 2020, when we were all forced to embrace the technology, everything was moved to online, couldn't go visit bricks and mortar because of the pandemic. And a lot of that is still around. I mean, now we're doing interviews by Zoom or by all different types of technology. That has made it much easier for the criminals, and it's blurred the lines between identity theft, fraud, and cyber threats. They are actually one and the same, or they use one to perpetrate the other. So in the past, if you had a phone scam, they were trying to get you to buy gift cards, or they're trying to get you to give up your credit card or bank account information. Today, when you get these scams, it's emails, they no longer have links or attachments. People have always been told, don't click on those. Now they don't have them. There's just a phone number to call. If you do get a scam call and they say that they're Microsoft or Apple and there's a problem with your computer, or if there's a pop-up on your computer, they don't ask for anything sensitive. What they do is they have you go to a website to install, it's a type of software. It's called remote access software. It allows IT professionals to troubleshoot an IT or technology issue remotely. It's a legitimate program. Well, the criminals are now using this. So when you get these calls, or if you get the email and you call the phone number, and they are supposedly checking your computer and looking for viruses, they're in your computer. Then at the end of the call, they say, okay, everything's clean. If you have no more problems, give us a call back. But they're still in the computer. We're working with a couple right now where they lost $1.1 million. First, it was a phone call scam. They were tricked into doing the wire transfers. Once they caught on that it was a scam and they stopped that, the criminals used the remote access software that was still in the woman's computer, and they went into her investment account, and they liquidated about $400,000 worth of investments that she's had for probably 20, 30 years. So now, in addition to losing the money through the wire transfers, they also were hit with a massive capital gains tax. So this is how technology and identity theft, fraud, and cyber, it has all become one and the same. So you can't just take anything at face value anymore. We tell everybody, validate or eliminate. Whatever you see, email, phone call, text, letter, doesn't matter what it is. If you can't confirm that information to be true, get rid of it.
Oh, that's great. That's great advice. Tell me about just what are some of the things that we can look for, I guess, telltale signs of a scam? And what are the kind of low-hanging fruit, easy stuff to spot? And what are the more advanced, more disguised things that we should be aware of?
Yeah, so it used to be easy where we could tell people, look for these 1, 2, or 3 things. That doesn't work anymore, unfortunately, because the criminals now using AI and all the technology, they're able to modify it and change it enough. So you'll get something and you'll be like, well, it's kind of what they told me, but it doesn't look the same, and it's hard to tell. So again, that's why we just say validate or eliminate. So the ways that you can validate, if you get an email that looks like it's from your bank saying we detected a suspicious transaction, don't call the phone number in the email. Don't call the phone number in the text message. Don't click on the links. Don't open attachments. Call the bank directly. Now, where do you find the phone number for the bank? Don't do an internet search for it and call the first number that pops up, because criminals buy Google ads to make the ads pop up at the top of a search result, and those are bogus fake phone numbers. You're calling the criminals. So you go right to the website. So let's just say, for example, if it's Bank of America, go to Bank of America's website, look up the contact information, call there. You could always go visit a local branch or log into your account. If it says there's a suspicious transaction, log in and see if it's there. If it's not, you know it's fake. And as a precaution, go ahead and change your password while you're in there, just in case. So that's some of the things that how you can validate. If you're going to be buying something online, if you're going to a website that you've never been to before, take the name of that website followed by, and do an internet search, followed by the word scam or reviews or fraud, things like that. So have the search engines help you, as opposed to having all the negative stuff coming up first when you're doing a search result and you end up getting in trouble. So use these tools to your advantage. Other scams that we're seeing, like I said, about the remote access software, that's a big one, and it comes in various forms. The most recent, biggest way it's getting people, it looks like it's an email coming from PayPal, And there's no links, no attachments. And in the email, it'll say, thank you for renewing your Norton and it'll have the dollar amounts. It might even have your name and your street address on there, your email address in it. So it looks like it's official. And down at the bottom, it says, if you didn't do this, or if you changed your mind, give us a call. We'll be happy to refund your money. You call the number, and the person, instead of giving the $200 back, supposedly as a refund, they tell you, oh my gosh, I forgot the decimal point. I just put 20,000 into your account. You got to help me. We got to get your bank on the phone. And then that starts this whole big panic scheme, and they end up getting people to wire money or do Bitcoin and such. So that's one way. The other way is it'll look like you're buying cryptocurrency. And you'll get this and you'll call. If you call the phone number in that email, they will answer saying they are PayPal, but they are not PayPal. There was one woman, we finally had to score one for the good guys. She called me because her friend told her, wouldn't let her leave her house until she called me. And she said, yeah, she goes, I don't know why I'm calling you, but I got this email from PayPal, and I called them, and somebody's trying to get in my bank account. So PayPal told me to take all the money out and put my money into this other bank account. And I was like, okay, where's this other bank account? What she didn't realize is that she took all the cash out of her account and they told her where to go. And they were telling her to go to, they're called Bitcoin ATM machines. So you put the money in, and when you put the money in, you're buying cryptocurrency. But she just thought it was like an ATM to make deposits, like you can do it in an ATM machine. She didn't know what these things were. Right. So these are some of the things that we're seeing, how they're modifying the scams. So I always tell people that if the hair on the back of the neck is standing up, there's a reason for that. Don't dismiss it. I mean, can you imagine a gazelle in the wild being like, wait, is there a lion? And be like, oh, no, it's okay. I'm going to eat my grass. I'm like, no. Right. Otherwise, they'd be the lion's lunch. So don't be the lion's lunch. If something doesn't feel right, if it's off, take the time, pause. You don't have to do anything immediately. We need to pause, think about what's happening, and then make a decision from there after you've verified.
It's incredible just how sophisticated they've gotten. I had a friend that was looking for a boat, and he found a boat for sale and ended up calling the woman. And the woman, it was an elderly woman, and she explained how her husband died, and she really just wanted to get rid of the boat. She was selling it at a really favorable price, right? It was like probably 5 to 10 grand lower than it should have been listed for. But she just wanted to get rid of it. Even had my friend talk to her attorney, called the separate phone line. I know you've heard this a million times, but just incredible. Like, my friend even talked to the attorney, and everything was so legit, wired the money to the bank account, very well-known financial institution, wired the money, and then all of a sudden, everybody's gone. The money was gone. The woman's phone line was disconnected. The attorney's phone line was disconnected. The financial institution investigated it. The attorney had actually passed away several years ago. That was this attorney. And it was just like unbelievable how sophisticated it has become. And it turned out the financial institution traced it back, and the money got moved to somewhere in Russia. And there was no recourse. He lost his money. He lost like $25,000.
Wow. Yeah, and that's the thing that people don't realize. This is modern day organized crime. This is not just the 1 or 2 man operations. Yeah, you get a few of those, but they are run like companies. They have the CEO all the way down to entry level and everybody in between. So when you're talking to these scammers, if you say, I want to speak to a supervisor, they got a supervisor they can transfer you to. If you say, like on the one where they say they're going to refund the money and they forgot the decimal point, and they're like, oh, we're going to bring your bank in. Well, they have your banker join in the call, but it's the guy sitting in the seat next to the criminal because he's another criminal. But these are very elaborate. Another one that we're seeing a lot of is, and it's a horrible name. It's a version off the romance scams, but they call it pig butchering. And basically what they're doing is they're building the person up to get them to put more money into it. So basically fattening the pig, then eventually they go in for the slaughter. But in these particular cases, they'll meet somebody online, whether it starts off as romantic or not. And then they will tell them about how, I got to go. I got to do a trade on my crypto. I just made a lot of money. I got to handle this call. And so it starts piquing the other person interest about, oh, crypto, you make a lot of money. How does that work? Oh, well, there's this program I can show you how you do it. I can help you out. And it starts off and they explain everything. They teach you how to do it. And then you start putting money in. And basically, it is a digital version of the Bernie Madoff Ponzi scam. Because you put money in and they give you money back. They're like, oh, you made money. You can actually take that out. So you're putting money in, you're taking it out. You're like, okay, this seems legit. Then all of a sudden it gets to the point where you can't take any more money out. Just talked to a woman last night where over $250,000 she's lost and it is gone. And when I say gone, I mean gone for good. She's not going to be able to reclaim that. And even while I was talking to her, she still in the back of her mind was thinking that there is the possibility this was legit. She's texting me the screenshot. She's like, look, it shows there's this much money in the account. I'm like, this is all fake. This is all fabricated. And it looked like it was a legitimate website. So this is what we are up against. This is their full-time job. And I hate to use the word professional, but they are professionals at what they do. In some countries, you can get college degrees in how to do these scams. So this is what you're up against.
It's just unbelievable. Any thoughts on, is there any advantage to just thinking about when you go search the internet on your computer, you can go through Chrome or Internet Explorer, but any advantages to going, clicking through and doing searches and then layering on top of that kind of search engines of like Google or Yahoo or Bing? I mean, kind of all the same? Or can you speak to any of that?
Yeah, there are actually some that are better than others. Chrome, the Internet Explorer, or Edge, the new one, those I personally do not use them. Mainly reason is not necessarily for the criminal activity. Yes, with Chrome, because of all the different integrations and stuff, there is that possibility of nefarious stuff getting in. But the biggest reason I don't use them is because everything you're doing online is being tracked and sold for marketing purposes, for ad purposes. So that's why if you Google, let's say it's a blue sneaker, tennis shoe, and all of a sudden now you're going to see the ads for it everywhere, every time you get online. And people are like, how does that happen? It's because you searched it and they're tracking it and that's being matched to you. And now everywhere you go, they're doing that. There are better search engines and better browsers out there that are more privacy centric. So Firefox is one that's been out there for quite a while that a lot of people use. And another one is Brave, Brave. That one I really like. It's very privacy forward. Yes, you still have search engines, but the thing about with the search engine, and you will still see ads when you get the search results, but they're not targeted ads. So if you're looking up a specific type of a shoe, you're not going to see ads for that particular shoe. You might see ads for shoes in general. So even though the information is still there, they're not creating a manifest of everything you're doing online and selling that for marketing purposes. Same thing with the search engines. For search engine, Brave has its own built-in search engine, or another one I like is Start Page. That's another one that's more privacy forward, privacy centric. So there are some things that you can do, but it depends on what you're searching for. So I have three web browsers that I use and 4 different search engines. So depending on what I'm trying to find, some might be more robust than others, but I primarily use Brave, and then I'll use Firefox, and then sometimes depending on what website I'm going to, it might only be compatible for Chrome, then I'll have to use that. So there are options that you can do. And not necessarily that you're on a criminal's website. It's just the fact that people aren't selling and tracking. So it's more from a privacy perspective. But criminals can buy ads on any of these. So when you're searching for something, it's important to always look at the URL, the web address, because it has the little description in it. If you're looking for something specific, how to do this, one of the biggest ones, if you search how to get a free credit report, you're going to get a whole bunch of things coming up. The first few are going to be ads. Some might be for legitimate companies. Other ones are not. But you can't tell just by looking at it which is which. So again, be very careful. Find trusted known sources to work with, especially if you're going to be doing anything with sensitive information. So just be careful. Do your homework. Do your research.
Yeah, that's really helpful. So Brave is a web browser as well as a search engine.
Yes. Yep. And what's
Okay.
really cool about it is that when you're using it, they also block a lot of the back end stuff that websites put up. That sometimes when you open a web page and it's a little slow to load, and it can also slow down your device. What Brave does is it strips all that out, and it'll tell you every time you get on to use it again how many minutes or hours it saved you, how many different types of things that it's blocked. And then when you're on each website, it'll have a little thing in the top right corner, and it'll tell you how many things on that website are wanting your information or recording your information. So it really kind of exposes you and makes you aware of what's behind the scenes on a lot of these websites.
Is there anything we should be doing on our phones? So let's just like say, for example, I have an iPhone. Is there anything like easy, low hanging kind of fruit again that I should be doing, or settings or anything I should be doing in my phone?
Yeah, so when it comes to phone, I am a big fan of the iPhone, mainly because of the way the Apple environment is created. It is much harder to get an Apple device infected than it is an Android or a Windows or any of the other ones. So to me, Apple, it has a bit of a leg up on the security side there. Not to say that nothing can happen. Usually we see those phones being compromised because they were jailbroken, or somebody went to a website to download and install an app as opposed to going through the Apple App Store. So that's something that you can do. Always make sure you go through the App Store. Now, granted, if it's a thing for your bank and you're on your bank's website or you're logged in and it has that there, and then that's different. But if you're just trying to search for, I don't know, something generic and you see that, go to the App Store and see if it's there. The other thing is the settings. You can adjust the settings. And again, this is another reason why I like iPhones, because you can turn the settings on and off all day long and you are not going to break that operating system. On Android, you have to be careful because sometimes you can change things in settings and you could end up really messing up your device. But with the Apple phones, people have a fear because back in the day, especially those of us that have used computers for many years, back in the time where, the blue screen of death, where if you did something wrong. So people have a fear of them. But go ahead and look at the settings. When you're somewhere sitting at a doctor's office and you're waiting to go back in, just start going in and look at your settings, turn them on, turn them off, know what apps have access to what information. If you don't use Bluetooth devices, turn Bluetooth off. Don't leave it on all the time. Make sure you have a passcode on your phone. The big thing we're seeing with the Apple products right now, the criminals are taking over Apple IDs left and right. And it's mainly because somebody bought their iPhone 10 years ago and they only had a 6 or 8 character password when they set it up, or they might not even remember what the password is. It's really easy. Criminals can use a supercomputer and they can hack an 8 or less character password, and I think it's like 32 seconds.
Wow.
So you want your passwords to be at least 12 characters or more. So make sure your Apple ID, if you haven't changed that password in more than a year, or if it's less than 12 characters, change that password. That's a big one. And that's what we see a lot of times too when it comes to people using technology. There's that privacy versus convenience thing that people that struggle with. And I always say the more you have of one, the less you have of the other. So if it's convenient, it's convenient to have a 4-character password because it's easy to remember. And it's convenient to use the same password for everything, but you're putting yourself at risk to having everything being account taken over. So
Right.
again, if it takes you one step, it takes the criminal one step to overcome. If it takes you 3 steps to get in, that's 3 hurdles they're going to have to overcome to get in. So just take that into consideration.
So as inconvenient as 2-step authentication, it is a pain in the butt, but man, it's so much safer, right?
Absolutely. Now, you'll never hear me say anything is safe because everything has risk. But again, it is better. And what we're seeing a lot of companies, they're starting to move away from passwords. Eventually, they're going to be pass keys where you'll have to use an authenticator program like Google Authenticator or Authy or like 1Password. They now have the ability to do pass keys. So when you go to log into the app, instead of putting in a password and then having them send you a code and then you have to enter that code, you would log into your authenticator app on your device. You would open it up. And then the code that you see, I think it's like every maybe 15, 20 seconds, the code changes. So you have to be in there. So in order for somebody to get into your account, they're going to have your authenticator app that's on your device and be able to access that code. So if what I'm talking about sounds like a foreign language to you and you're like, what the heck is a passkey? Start looking into these things, because eventually they're going to force everyone to use them, and you don't want to learn how to use it during that time because you could be locked out of everything. So just start researching it, look at it, play around with it, pick one of your accounts that maybe it's not a crucial account, but that offers it, and figure out how to use these authenticator apps, because eventually everybody's going to have to.
Carrie, is that covered in your most recent book? I know you have a more recent book that came out.
Yeah, the authenticator apps are not. That book came out February 2020. Great time for a book launch, right before the earth stood still. But the authenticators, there were some out there, but there weren't a lot of websites that were using them at the time. So that is not covered in the book. But we do have a free newsletter that we send out every month for people if they want to sign up. And in the newsletter, we just talk about what is the latest threat, how does it impact you, and what can you do to protect yourself. We talk about these passkeys, what they are. We're constantly working with victims. We got 3 new ones that we're working with this week. And every time they come in, we try to kind of reverse engineer what happened so that we can turn that into a training and educational moment for our clients and for our newsletter subscribers.
How do we sign up for the newsletter?
Yes, you can just go to my website, which is carriekerskie.com, and right on the homepage, just sign up to join the newsletter. And then we will also send you our tip sheet, which has the web addresses for the 5 credit bureaus about how to set up their free credit freeze.
Awesome. Carrie, I'm going to ask you one last thing, because I've been using AI a lot more often. I find it so convenient to do a lot of research for me, is how I've been using it a lot, where before I would Google and I'd go to several different sources and come up to with my own summaries or theories on like what I want to do. Or in AI basically gives the ability, they do that for you, right? And I love that from an efficiency standpoint. Any particular AI, I don't know what you call them, apps, I guess, that you recommend over others that are safer, that are, any thoughts on that?
So here's the thing with AI. Yes, it does make it much easier for us to get answers to things that we're looking for. Now, even if you do a Google search or a search online, at the top, you have the AI's description or answer. And then where in the past, you'd have to go to, like you said, multiple different websites. But here's the problem with AI. Garbage in, garbage out. So it depends on where it's getting the answers from. Where is the information being fed to that AI? And in the space that we're in, we test a lot of these because we make ourselves guinea pigs and we want to understand this stuff. And yes, for a lot of answers, we're finding that if you ask the question, the answers they give are pretty good. I would still fact check everything just to make sure, because again, it's whatever that has been trained. But it's like, think about a toddler. Whatever the toddler is trained of how to speak, how to learn, how to everything that they do, that's how they respond. And it's the same thing with this AI technology. So you have to think about who's the one where are they getting the answers from, and who's validating those answers. So again, it's a great shortcut, but you still need to verify the information. The other thing is that the more we are using AI, we are also training it. So everything that you're putting in there is also being documented and stored so that it can continue to train the AI machine. So don't do anything sensitive. Be very careful with that, because you could be giving it to this AI, and then when somebody asks a question, they could end up giving your sensitive answers because that's what they have stored in their database mind, if you will. So AI, I think it's a great tool. AI has been around for actually quite a long time. The criminals have been using it for years. It's just not the rest of us are now realizing that it's there and we now have access to it, where before you couldn't. So it is a good tool as far as which one's better than the other. I think they're all still kind of in the early stages, at least the consumer side of it. So check out a couple of them. But yeah, it is a great tool. But if you're a college student writing a paper, don't use AI to write it. There was one story of an attorney when he went to trial, or there was some paper. No, it was a case study. And he was like citing all these cases because he just had the AI do it. And when it actually went to court, none of those case studies ever existed. Like none of those cases, they're all fake cases, totally made up. Oh yeah, so he definitely had egg on his face that day. So if you're going to use it, again, confirm everything before you end up putting it out and checking it. But it's a great tool if you want to help clean up some grammar and things like that. I think it's good for that.
Yeah. Well, Carrie, this is unbelievable how much good information. And I know I'm going to go back and listen to this where I could actually take notes because just some great information and tips on here. One last time, if you could just share different ways that we could access more information from you, or if, God forbid, something happens where we are in need of your services, some type of hack or event or identity theft or fraud, just share with us a little bit about how we can get more information and how we can access your services.
Sure. So there are two main ways. You can go to my main website, which is carriekerskie.com, or you can also go to kerskiegroup.com. Both of them kind of end up going to the same place behind the scenes, but that's where on carriekerskie.com, that's where we have a lot of the blog posts, the articles. We have podcast episodes on there, also have a YouTube channel where there's a lot of training videos. So you'll find a lot of that information there. But we tell people if something comes up and you're not quite sure, feel free to reach out because we don't know if we can help. I mean, we have had some victims come to us, and when we ask them, what all have you done so far? They've done everything except for maybe one piece. So we're like, okay, just go do this, take care of it. But then for other ones, if they need more of the heavy lifting, we're available for that. When people hire us to assist them, to help them recover, we do majority of the work for them. Sometimes we have to do things together, like hop on a joint phone call with a credit card company, bank, whatever. But we're there to guide and be their advocate to help them recover and recover fully, because people think the problem's solved, but a lot of times it comes back up again. But really the best way is just to go to carriekerskie.com. That's kind of the central hub for everything.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to the Holistic Wealth and Health Podcast. We hope we inspired you to make changes so you can live your best life. If you want to find out more about what we do, or if you want to have a holistic wealth and health financial plan, please call 456-833-7000. Please subscribe to the podcast and share it widely with your friends and family. Financial planning and advisory services are offered through Prosperity Capital Advisors, PCA, an SEC-registered investment advisor with its principal place of business in the state of Ohio. J.L. Smith Holistic Wealth Management and PCA are separate, non-affiliated entities. PCA does not provide tax or legal advice. Insurance and tax services offered through J.L. Smith Holistic Wealth Management are not affiliated with PCA. Information received from this podcast should not be viewed as individual investment advice. Product discussions and illustrations are hypothetical in nature and will vary based on many factors, including, but not limited to, age, health, product, insurance carrier, and product design. You should consult the insurance carrier website and policy for detailed information. For information pertaining to the registration status of PCA, please contact the firm or refer to the Investment Advisor Public Disclosure website, www.advisorinfo.sec.gov. For additional information about PCA, including fees and services, send for our disclosure statement as set forth on Form ADV from PCA using the contact information herein. Please read the disclosure statement carefully before you invest or send money.